Tanking nowadays seems like an essential part of the NBA. Teams that aren't performing get rid of their best players and reset, looking to lose as many games as possible to hopefully draft that next superstar. A risky endeavour, it can supposedly lead to great success, but also risks fan attendance and team value in the process. It's a method which is employed by many teams, but does tanking actually work? In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down some teams which are tanking today, and figuring out through some opinion and some statistics if tanking actually works in helping a team in the long run. I'll also predict if it will work out for those teams currently tanking. Let me know what you guys think about the state of tanking in today's NBA. Will it work out for teams like the Jazz and the Spurs or not? Before we begin, only about 8% of you guys actually subscribed. That number is going up steadily. Let's keep growing this community one sub at a time. Join the channel Discord, link in bio, so that you're always notified when I stream, upload videos, or just to get input on content I put out. Like the video if you enjoy, and without further ado, let's get into it. The two most obvious examples of tanking teams in the NBA currently are the Utah Jazz and the San Antonio Spurs, both taking on the task to reset for the future. With Victor Wembanyama being next year's consensus first overall pick and a so-called generational talent, it seems their intentions are clear, trying to lose as many games as possible to move higher up on the draft board. For the Spurs, they have come out of a limbo period with DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge, where they just fell short of the playoffs a couple of years in a row. It's weird to see them near the bottom of the table. They've always been a force to be reckoned with under coach Popovich. Obviously they want to get back to those winning ways. The Jazz on the other hand have just come out of a period where they consistently made the playoffs with two bona fide stars in Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. But failures in their playoff appearances and the relationship between the two teammates have caused them to do a full 180, trading nearly their whole roster in hopes of tanking. You could also say teams like the Thunder, Rockets, Magic and Pistons are tanking, and I'm sure they would take the first overall pick with no issue, but I view their goals more in developing their young talent, rather than purposely trying to lose games like the Spurs and the Jazz. Let's see how this strategy is going for the both of them. Spoiler alert, not very well. Or really well if you're focusing on winning games, which they aren't. Very confusing, I know, but this is the reason I made this video. These teams who are obviously tanking are actually experiencing more success than they did last year at the current moment. Currently the Spurs have a 5-3 record and are sitting at the 4th position in the Western Conference. Players like Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson have shown how they can step up, with Vassell averaging 20 points, 5 rebounds and 5 assists per game, on nearly 40% from behind the arc, and Keldon contributing 24 points, 5 rebounds and 4 assists on average. It's shown how this combination of raw talent and potential, along with Greg Popovich's proven level of coaching, has led to the success they have seen during the season so far. Other players like Jakob Poeltl and Josh Richardson have helped to form a cohesive roster for the squad. The Jazz have truly found a future star it looks like in Lauri Markkanen, the Finnish 25-year-old finally getting a chance to shine. Across 9 games so far this season, he's averaged 22 points, 9 rebounds and 3 assists per game. This team has seen great contribution across the whole roster, having 6 players averaging over 10 points per game. They find themselves at the 3rd spot in the West, and the scary thing is, they probably could be better, with better use of players like Colin Sexton, who hasn't had as many starts or minutes as I would have thought. These takes are obviously a bit of an overreaction, but it'll be interesting to see if both these teams can keep up this form moving further into the season. So these teams are trying to tank, and are not doing it very well so far, but is there even point in doing so? If you experience this kind of success and your younger players show this level of potential? First, a little history. Back in the 80s, both the Clippers and the Rockets were known to have tanked to get a higher pick, as back in the day the first pick was a coin toss between the bottom two teams. The Clippers picked Terry Cummings, and the Rockets picked one, Hakeem Olajuwon. Both very solid players in their own right, but one is obviously better than the other. In 1985, the NBA introduced the lottery system, and in 1994 it was altered to better favour the bottom teams, and this truly started a race to the bottom of the standings. The Spurs created a dynasty built off of tanking in the 1996-97 season, picking up Tim Duncan while the team struggled with David Robinson's injury. With the introduction of the play-in tournament recently, it has again changed the way that the odds of the lottery operate. Time to crunch some numbers. Since the 1985 draft, 16 of the teams out of 38 who ended up with the first overall pick had a higher than 15% chance of receiving it, which is classified as a high percentage, while 7 had a lower than 10% chance, a low percentage, and 15 had an average shot, in the 10 to 15% range. So yes, having a worse record does lead to a higher chance of receiving the number 1 pick. Although it's worth noting that having a lower to mid-table position on the standings nearly led to an equal amount of those picks. And how does this relate back to tanking? Well, I went back through NBA seasons and looked at some of the major teams who were tanking over the years, and see what pick they received. These teams include the 1990 Nets, 1997 Spurs, 2003 Cavs, 2007 Trailblazers, 2007 Sonics, 2012 Bobcats, 2013 Magic, 2014 Sixers, and the 2015 Knicks. Here's what pick each of them received, and here's what player they ended up taking from that pick in the next year's draft. But how'd they improve from this point forward? In the next 5 years after they tanked, this is how their record improved or declined. This graph displays each of the infamous tanking teams' records before their major tanking season and 5 years after the fact. It shows that on average, teams experienced more success than the years before they tanked, which shows some backing to the fact that it's a useful and proven strategy within the league. I found that on average, these teams experienced a 29.1% increase from before the tank versus after, and 6 out of the 9 teams experienced an increase in win percentage per season. I hope my math checks out, it took me a while. Only the Spurs out of these teams have managed to capitalise and win a championship from the decision so far, showing a limit to the success which can be drawn from this strat. And obviously these numbers don't represent the full story, but I think it helps to provide some visualisation and statistics into the conversation. Some factors haven't been taken into account, but it provides a general idea that tanking is definitely a viable strategy to help a team improve in the long term. For the Jazz and the Spurs, it seems like the path for them is to either trade their better players for draft picks, that is if they get too good, like the Thunder have done in their post-Westbrook era, or to ride it out and hope their record drops low enough to secure a high pick, or they forget the tank and try to win as much as possible. Who knows what they'll end up deciding? My prediction is that their records will eventually drop, but I wouldn't be surprised if both teams manage to stay off the very bottom of the table, probably to the disappointment of the team owners and managers. We did find that tanking is a viable option, so maybe it'll work out for them, in one way or another, in the draft or this season. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Does tanking actually benefit a team in the long run or not? This was a bit of a different video to usual, so let me know how you liked it. The support recently has been out of this world. I've been streaming every week, so stay tuned for that. Comment any video ideas down below and I'll make sure to check them out. Show the Discord some love. Just trying to create a bit more of a community with you guys over on that platform. Make sure you guys like and subscribe for future sports field content. Have a good one and cheers.